We're going to look back at the last decade of Masters of the Universe, how the property has been defined, challenges it's overcome, and what the future may hold. Get a behind-the-scenes look into how the franchise has been developed at Mattel's Mastery of the Masters of the Universe panel. Say that 3 times fast. So for our panelists, we have... Sorry, short. We have Rob David, who is the head of development for boys and girls global content at Mattel. Polite applause, thank you. And then we have Brandon Sopinsky, who is a brand builder and project designer at Mattel. So I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to ask you guys to kind of maybe explain what your role is and what you kind of have done in your time at Mattel in that role. So if you want to start.
Sure. The interrogation lights are not bright enough. Yeah. So I haven't been at Mattel for 10 years. I've been there for 7 years, so I'm just 3 years shy. But so I'm traditionally, before Mattel, I was a writer, story editor, and producer for animation. I had written, was a main writer on Turtles Forever, which was the 25th anniversary movies for the Ninja Turtles. Mattel was looking to bring someone in to work on Masters of the Universe, to take all the stuff that had been done over the years and over the last 30 years, because it was coming up on the 30th anniversary, and kind of work on putting it together in a way that could be used to launch 1,000 more ships for the next 30 years. At the time, Mattel is inherently a toy company, but more than that, it's really an intellectual property company. It has an amazing portfolio of different brands, which are really story-driven brands. So Mattel hired me and others like me to come in and basically treat our properties not just as toys, but as intellectual properties with stories to tell about them. So I started on MOTU, but over the last 7 years, my role has expanded to oversee all of Mattel's brands. So with MOTU being my favorite, of course, nothing else comes close to it. So that's,
So I started at Mattel a little over 12 years ago. I've been working on all kinds of different boys' entertainment properties as a toy designer. So brand builder, that's a new one for me. I haven't heard that one yet. But what that kind of has turned into is now I get to look at some of the different properties that come Mattel's way, whether they're from the archives of vintage, stuff that we did back in the 80s or 70s or 60s, or brand new stuff that's coming our way, and I see how we can take that and build a great product line out of that as well. Another thing I've also been doing in the past couple of years is, as the lead kind of creative behind Masters of the Universe, it's becoming more of a licensed perspective, where I get to see everything that every company is doing with Masters of the Universe and kind of be the guiding light of, are they going the right direction creatively? Does everything look great? I talk to Rob, hey, is this cool? Are they kind of crossing the line, or is it on the right? Is the story good? That's what I kind of make sure that people like Sideshow or Mondo or Super 7 are kind of keeping the brand in the right direction. But I got started with Masters of the Universe as kind of a side project at Mattel, where I was working on a couple of different brands, and Matty Collector was kind of in its heyday, and they needed someone else to kind of take over the design role. And when I got on, I helped kind of establish the 2016 line that was finally out, brought in some new lines like Thundercats, helped launch the Filmation, or I guess Club Grayskull, kind of full animated look line for the first year. And then ultimately all that stuff kind of went away because Matty Collector shut down, which was a pretty big disappointment. But it was great to see Super 7 carry the torch and continue that amazing stuff. So I've helped work with them to make sure everything is what it should be, and keep the brand afloat. But now I get to work with all the different licensees that kind of keep Masters of the Universe out there in pop culture and make sure it looks really good.
Excellent. Could you tell me anything about current licensed products? So, for example, we have She-Ra and the Princesses of Power animated series that's supposed to be debuting this year. We also have a live-action film that is supposed to be debuting next year, tentatively. Do you have anything that you could share with us about working on those properties in any capacity?
And you're cutting right to the... I thought you were going to drag it out a little bit longer. I can say a little bit. Yes, there's stuff happening. Obviously, the She-Ra show is big and it's huge. It's on Netflix, so it should be a really great show. Actually have a different team that is working on the product for that because it is more of the girls' design team. One of the designers is actually floating around here somewhere. I think you might have seen him at our booth. So from what I've seen, the product is pretty amazing, and it will be a mass retail line. So for the first time, She-Ra is going to be back on shelves, and it's been a while. So it's pretty exciting. Can't really... Can't really give away much about like when you're going to start seeing stuff or what the announcements are, because I think that's more in Netflix's and DreamWorks' side when they're going to announce the show, like fully show stuff. So
here's the thing. So we're going to be a little bit frustrating here and there because we're going to be like, we can't talk about that, and things that are ongoing, but except for like big picture wise, we can. As soon as something comes out, then we won't shut up about it. So in developing content. Specifically, and I include in content, not just movies and television shows, but also video games and comic books, and things that have come out over the last 7 years, like the 30th anniversary of the app game, the most powerful game in the universe. That's something I wrote and directed the creative for that, and came out. We could talk about that. The comic book series for DC is an amazing opportunity to re-explore the mythology of MOTU for an audience that grew up on it, and to really dive deep. And I'll use that as kind of just like a springboard to talk about how we approach everything, including a movie or the She-Ra show. One of the most important things we have to do when we're looking at MOTU is it's a legacy brand, right? The only reason why we're doing it is because it meant so much to a large group of people, and it continues to mean things for people. If we don't honor what it means, then we should just be going and doing something entirely original. So when we take something like MOTU, the first thing we need to do is try to break down what the core concept of Masters is and why we all love it, like why we're all here, why we continue to love it. And then try to take that core and find a way to express it in surprising and relevant ways, so that it continues to resonate with people in today's world and with all of our kids and our grandkids and things to come. So the big project is to really boil it down to its essence, and then find new ways to express it. And new ways, we don't want to paint with the same brush, so how we make it relevant in the app game through humor and through kind of a meta awareness might be different than how we might bring it back in the comic book or in the feature. So specifically with She-Ra, we're working with DreamWorks. They're developing the show, and they're doing it the same way that we would do it, where they boil it down to what is it about She-Ra that is so compelling. What is it about her story? What does she mean to girls? What is it? It's the story of a redemption arc for her, and boiling down the core concept, and then finding fun, fresh ways to reach new audiences. And the same thing with the movie that we're working on with Sony, which has been in development for quite a while and gone through different iterations. And it's been a tough one to totally crack because, the higher the stakes, the more that's on the line, the harder it is to actually get it out the door. So there have been rounds of development, but one thing I can say is that regardless of whether or not it had gelled before, there's always a spirit of trying to respect it. And I've actually never been more excited about where the movie is and what it can be, and I think we're finding a way to express it, working with the new writers, directors on it, the Nee brothers. This is public information. We can tell that. Yeah. Really getting it to make it fresh and relevant, but stay true to what the core concept is.
Yeah. Applause line. I forgot to mention that I'm supposed to reserve 10 minutes at the end for questions and answers, but it's kind of your panel, so we're just going to take them on a rolling basis. So if you have any questions at any time, feel free to line up in the center behind the microphone, and we'll take your questions as they come in. But it's interesting because you mentioned fresh and new, and that made me think of your all the items that you have in the Mattel booth here at the convention. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. In case you guys haven't heard talking about it the rest of the week, but it's been kind of like this passion project from where it started when I got on the brand, that you have to love the brand to be a part of it, and it doesn't always get the respect that it should from Mattel at certain times because it is still kind of like, waiting to come back, right? It's this explosive thing that's about to happen. And so you come to these places and you want to show stuff off, but we can only show so much. What we've been doing as a part of a small team and a big company is just trying to have fun with what we can do and bring stuff to get you guys excited. There's people who have the license right now. They're doing great product, but we ultimately want to do more product. We never stopped wanting to. It just, with Matty Collector kind of shutting down, our collector kind of avenue to get it out to collectors and fans went away, but we never stopped working on the brand. We never stopped working on new product, new concepts, new collector stuff that we would love to do. So everything you guys see in that booth is just come from the passion of the people at Mattel. They're like, we need to have stuff. Like the mask, the fun kind of like goofy fanny pack with the fur, that all came from just like, you guys got a couple months, come up with some cool ideas that we can have for Comic-Con and we can have for PowerCon, and we fought to get all that just here, but also have a big display that we could kind of fill with just stuff that we put together as a passionate like design team. So everything in that booth, I can say, has a reason for being. It's not just we're just showing you cool stuff that we're never going to do. This is all going to lead into something that we're trying to work on. And hopefully we'll have a little bit more news very soon on some of those brands, like maybe the Thundercat stuff that's in there, or the She-Ra fashion dolls. There's stuff happening. It's not just to make you guys excited and then just go away. So I love the excitement. What we want you to do, I don't know if you've noticed, is the Tell Mattel kind of hashtag, is just share that stuff, be loud, be vocal, comment, whether it's good or bad, we want to hear from you guys, because what we're kind of doing is, as opposed to working on a product, putting it out, and then just hopefully you like it, we're showing you more of the product development stage, where this is what we're thinking about, this is what we're working on, but we're pitching it to internal Mattel at the same time we're showing it to you guys, so that you guys can be part of that development process, and we can take your criticism, take what you like, what you don't like, work on the product, and then by the time we actually have it on shelf or online, where it has started and where it kind of ended up. And
I just want to piggyback on that, like in being loud and being vocal. So on my first day when I showed up, Dave Voss, who is no longer at Mattel, but I think he was actually at PowerCon here yesterday, he brought me into his office and he gave me a stack of every single Bible to every incarnation of Masters of the Universe up until that date. And he said, here it all is, and read it all, and you can then throw it away or not throw it away, but here's the whole thing, right? So that was the Filmation, the originally, all the way up until the present day. So, but there's one Bible that became like apparent to me that wasn't in that stack, and I found it by going online, which is, you guys are tremendously, you are like the other massive Bible, because all of the conversations you have, all the collective passion for it, all the way you talk about it and the way you see it, it completely helps us understand what, like I was trying to say before, what is the core, the beating heart behind it all, and it's been indispensable. To be honestly, it's been so indispensable going forward. And the more you guys talk about MOTU, the more you talk about it, the more you should. It's not invisible. The people at Mattel, and the people at Sony, the people at all the people hear it, and it's very important to us. So please keep talking about it and having these conversations, because it's indispensable.
And part of that, oh, go ahead. Part of that, I was having some conversations with some folks. We had a panel yesterday where that topic came up about, I think it was David Voss said yesterday on a panel that the fans should make their voices heard. So if there's certain things that they want, they should advocate for the thing that they want, and then hopefully the folks at Mattel will take notice. And I tried to get kind of more of a concrete action from him, so the people aren't just shouting their desires into a void, but they're directing them in a particular direction so that their voices are being heard. And so I got some clarification on that today, so I thought I'd like to share that with some of you guys. There are some hashtags at the Mattel booth if you haven't seen them. There's hashtag Tell Mattel. There's hashtag We Want MOTU, Masters of the Universe. Hashtag We Want She-Ra with no hyphen, SHERA. And I guess we could create a hashtag We Want Thundercats.
It's already created.
And so the directive for this is if you want to see those things, if you want 12-inch She-Ra dolls, if you want Thundercats in The Return of Club Third Earth, if you want the 12-inch giant He-Man action figures, what you should do is get on your Faceplace or on your Twitter and at Mattel, then hashtag tell Mattel we want XYZ. So if you want those things, I mean, we do have kind of a captive audience right now, and everybody's got a computer in their pocket, and we're connected to Wi-Fi. So maybe as an exercise, if we could get this trending, you might want to take your phone out and hashtag tell Mattel and tell them exactly what you want. And that's a way for the internal stakeholders at Mattel, the internal champions of these particular projects that are in the Mattel booth, to be able to show the stakeholders the demand for this. It's a way for them to kind of track that. So that's a homework assignment, I guess. I know that's not fun, but go ahead and we'll take your question.
Oh, absolutely. First off, just Rob, real quick, the Turtles Forever. Love that movie. We were just talking about.
Oh, thank you.
Just awesome. Brandon, I'm not sure if this goes into one of the things that you can't talk about yet or down the line, but the Mega Constructs Castle Grayskull that we saw at Comic-Con.
Yes. It is happening.
It is happening.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so that's been the Mega Construct stuff has actually been a really fun project to work on because it's out there, it's at retail. It's kind of like the first time Masters has been at official retail in a while, which is kind of a huge thing that, you know, it's kind of just slipped in there, but it's been doing really well. And that was like a surprise for them, that because it was mixed in with a couple He-Man figures, a couple other properties that were in that whole like kind of CDU, and those were always selling out the best, which was like, yeah, of course, it's Master of the Universe, right? So they showed off the Moderator, which is like their first official build set, which is pretty cool. And I've seen the plans for what they have coming in that whole line, and it's amazing. I mean, I've seen prototypes for every figure. They have prototypes for every figure in like the whole, you know, Masters of the Universe catalog, as well as She-Ra. So I was trying to get the prototypes here to show you guys, but they were being really guarded with it. At least we got Scareglow and some of the other new stuff. But Castle Grayskull is happening. I mean, it is everything Castle Grayskull should be, but in block form. So it has all of the features that the castle does have. There's some really exciting pack-ins and special kind of variants that are come with it as well. And Comic-Con 2019, there should be a really exciting exclusive for the Mega Constructs line as well. Can't tell you about it now, but you know, it's a good way of kind of holding all your figures together. Yeah.
The She-Ra doll line is amazing. It's cool seeing that type of level. I mean, I'm totally into the figures too, but I bought the Comic-Con one. One of the coolest things is that you can kind of make She-Ra in the toy costume, the cartoon. You have Glimmer out there in kind of the toy costume, which is amazing. And then you have Catra in the Filmation. Mm-hmm. Will they come with their alternate outfits? Or is that like a pack out you could do? Or for Catra especially, I feel like we've not had a version of that toy costume.
Yeah, I can't necessarily speak to exactly what plans are for that because it's been kind of a labor of love with Darren.
Right.
In the back row.
Yeah,
right.
It's hiding somewhere. Yeah. So you can direct all your questions for that to him. But I would assume, yeah. I mean, the great thing about the fashion doll kind of strategy is, you know, you have the body already made, so you can kind of do a lot with just the soft goods. So I would assume you would have multiple outfits you can pack in with it. Yeah, right? Yes. There you go.
Oh,
yes.
We're going to see if we were going to cajole you to come up here. So you co-plotted the DC Comics, Masters Universe Comics. Were you involved any with the crossover with Thundercats in co-plotting that series, or the current Injustice comic?
So the Thundercats, when I co-wrote it with Lloyd Goldfine, the series before that, Eternity War, and then the Origin of She-Ra arc that preceded that, and the thing. The way it works is that I would write and develop it, each issue, write about an 11-page detailed treatment for the issue, and then different writers, Dan Abnett being the prominent one, would then take the treatment and then adapt it into comic book script format. So I was writing through the Eternity War, and then on Thundercats, Lloyd and I plotted that together and wrote that together, which was a lot of fun. Now the series was just it was total dream come true because I love comics, so it's just like I'm a big comic book fan. And then being able to write something that would come out consistently every month was a nice feeling. And it just was a great way of, comic books are kind of like rock and roll. They're kind of like jazz. You can just try things out. You plan out a storyline, but you can just do things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in other mediums because it would require so much more discussion and back-checking, but you just go for it. And so it was very exciting.
Did you guys read that by chance? Anyone here? So I always wanted to know, I would love to do a line of figures inspired by that, where these two worlds kind of cross over and combine. Would you guys be up for that? So you could do the big epic Mummator collaboration. Is that the jazz?
I would love those.
Or you can get maybe Prince Adam as the Superman kind of cameo.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Thundercats He-Man one. So with that series, after doing the whole Eternity War series, two things I really wanted to do. One was to do something that wholly embraced the classic He-Man. One, because as much as it's great to reimagine and explore different expressions of the character in the other series, it's just there's no shortage of love for the classic, and there's something that just wanted to be able to just express that, and express it with Thundercats was a great thing. And the other thing was just to also just lighten up. Have fun, have a little bit of a wink. Like I said, there's no one brush that we're going to use to paint everything. The thing about MOTU is, in its core concept, it's kind of an amazing, crazy cocktail of every single thing that ever existed in fantasy, pop culture, science fiction. It's like this. It's just this mosaic, and people keep adding things, and it's so versatile. So to ever do one way of doing MOTU all the time would just be a shame and kind of against the spirit of it. So it's fun to do a romp and have a little bit of fun. And the Injustice is still set in the classic more universe, but we found a great way. So I'm not plotting that story, but I'm just involved in approvals and general direction, and working with Tim Seeley, who's a great writer. And we wanted to do an Injustice crossover because the Injustice at the time is doing some crossovers with Ninja Turtles and everything. And there's He-Man and Superman. They're destined to beat the crap out of each other at least every few years. And we had done a Justice League crossover before, so we're looking for a new angle. And the Injustice angle just felt fresh and different, and the way that Tim came into it, the idea is saying, He-Man and Superman are very similar, so to take Superman when he's a dictator and then put him next to He-Man, He-Man then stands as an immediate symbol of what Superman has lost. So kind of having them battle, it's kind of more poignant for Superman because He-Man is everything that he's supposed to be, but now isn't. So there's a lot of drama to mine there. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. And then we got to throw in Darkseid and Kirby's Fourth World, which I hope there are no lawyers here. I'm sure everyone knows was kind of an influence on MOTU in the very beginning. So the idea of having Darkseid and all come to Eternia is just total geek come true. It's a wild ride.
You mentioned that they're destined to fight each other. To piggy kind of back on that question, are they destined to fight each other in an Injustice 3 video game?
If I had my way, yes.
Would you guys like that?
Yeah, I've loved that game, playing it, and since they started introducing the DLC characters, I've been bugging everyone at Mattel to get He-Man in there. Just please, just send him pictures, do something, just get it out there. And he knows, I've been bugging the crap out of them to do that. So I think by now, with everyone that they included in the second one, if they do a third one, there's no way we're letting that not happen. Especially with the comic already happening, it kind of feels right.
Yay!
So, yeah.
You got a question?
I do. Excuse me. So Thundercats, we've got two of the old ones that we'd possibly gotten sculpted from the Four Horsemen in the cabinet here. Mm-hmm. Can we look forward to a time frame when we might be getting those or others available to purchase?
So it's one of those things I can't necessarily say much, but I would say, so those figures originally were supposed to be in the first wave. Our schedules just kind of like didn't line up, so let's push them to the next year, and then things happened. So we wanted to at least show you guys that it's not dead. Like, we didn't stop on it. We're just trying to figure out how we can get it out in a way that's meaningful for everyone that's collected the first couple of figures, but also could be a reintroduction if you didn't get a chance to get those. So I would hope, if everything goes well, that in the next couple months we would definitely have a plan kind of announced for you guys. So it's looking good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
One more thing there, just we got the He-Man mask. We got the He-Man masks.
Yep.
Skeletor's coming, probably.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just another question. When you're talking about these new franchises launching, and it obviously gives you opportunities to kind of perhaps, I don't know if it's everything's been turned over to Super 7, but perhaps re-release things that now sell for a much more premium on the secondary market, like a Castle Grayskull, since everything's already built. I'm not sure. Are there any opportunities down the line?
If you're referencing Castle Grayskull specifically, I mean, there's no reason we couldn't do that. I think it has to make sense for us to get that model in place, or how we would get it out to you guys. That's a huge undertaking. The same thing that Super 7 is going to be running into with Snake Mountain. It's a huge box to ship out. So it just takes a lot of logistics to order that stuff around. But there's no reason we couldn't if something were to happen, like a big line were to come out pretty soon because there's a movie or something. I mean, maybe it's a great opportunity to get Castle Grayskull at your local Target. I don't know. Yeah.
So I have a question about maybe taking it back to some of the projects that you've worked on in the past. What was a project that you worked on that you found the most challenging with regard to either property like Princesses of Power or Masters of the Universe?
You can take that.
The most challenging. Well, the most challenging, it's an ongoing thing, is for us, and it's going to happen, is getting Masters of the Universe back in the way we all want it back, in the big franchise perspective. Because there's challenges on each of the individual touch points and expressions, but it's getting everything mobilized so that we can flick the switch and the whole tent rises and it's as big as we all know it can be. Because the thing that we all know is that this franchise can be massive. For 3 years in the 80s, it was bigger than anything at the time. Okay, and it's not just a fad, because sometimes things are big and then it's just like, it's not, we're not going to launch the Rubik's Cube franchise, right? These are characters and these are stories, and they have such depth. And you guys saw that the compendium, the encyclopedia that Dark Horse published, right? If you see just how much there is in there, this is the type of stuff that things like Marvel is based on. These are universes. This is Transformers. So getting all the pieces together to bring it back in a way that it can be as big as it was originally, or even bigger, that's the big challenge. And the challenges on that is there's a lot on the line. It's very expensive to do something like that. It's a big risk. And all the different pieces have to come together. Everybody has to play nice. Everyone has to agree on the same thing. It is a complicated thing. So that's the big challenge ultimately on this brand. But I without being able to divulge things, I feel like it's never been better. There are different things have lined up. We have people who really do get it. Even in our own Mattel, we have a new CEO a couple months, and he gets it. He really gets how big He-Man can be, and is really aggressively trying to get everything together so that it can be as big as it can be. And we have partners, like I said, in Sony who feel the same way, and so on and so on. So that's the big challenge. It is going to break well, and when it does, let's meet again and talk about it.
Yeah. I would just reiterate all of that. on top of trying to make sure it looks good and like make sure the characters are what you guys want mixed with something new, and you know it plays great with what came from before and also has a new fresh take, and not make it look like something you guys would hate. So a lot of pressure.
Is there something that you've done on Masters Universe that you are most proud of?
For me, it's the Eternity War. I mean, that was such a label of thank you. That was such a labor of love for me. I mean, and the one before it was the She-Ra arc with Saren and all, and Despara. Despara I created with Gabe De La Torre, who was the art designer at the time. Weaving that through the origin of She-Ra with Saren and Grayskull all the way through Eternity War was such a passion project for me. I was working nights and weekends, waking up. I mean, anyone who's really gotten passionate about something, cares about this stuff, this will happen to you. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd just go out and start writing in my journal and try to get back to sleep. I cared about it that much, so I was very, very satisfied to be able to see it go to the end. And the people I worked with on it were tremendous. Like Pop, who drew the Eternity War. I mean, you can write like 1,000 snake men crest over the hills led by He-Man, and he's got to go draw that, and he was drawing it like crazy, and he'd be calling me and say, "What are you thinking, this or that or that?" So the amount of passion that was on display there, that was tremendously important to me. So that's the one project, and trying to and I was happy that people responded well to some of the new takes on it. Like Despara, for me, was a new take on the Force Captain Adora that was trying to honor what that concept was for the character, but tell it a new way. And the one I'm most proud of is Hiss, is taking someone in disguise, a master disguise, and say that it's not just one action figure costume he always puts back on. What is that? What does that mean to be somebody who's existed forever in different guises? And the fact that fans responded well to it meant a lot to me.
For me, I've loved every product that I've got to work on Matty Collector and all the stuff that came out. There's some really complex stuff like Talon Fighter and the Roton, but I think more is about, I'm really proud that we were able to come back to PowerCon this year. A lot of people thought Mattel was just kind of like giving up and everything's been passed on, and none of that is true. It's just internally we have to kind of make a case for why we should be somewhere, why we should be at this event or this event. And PowerCon's always been one that I'm like, why are we not there officially? Like what is going on? And luckily we were able to get a booth and just have the space, but also make it a really fun experience for everyone. And the turnout yesterday was amazing. So to me, that just keeping it alive and having such a good response, to be here was a pretty proud moment. So more to come.
So my question's for Brandon. When Snake Mountain originally, when they prototyped it, or when they had that model at Comic-Con, I think you were the one that was interviewed by Pixel. Yep. And by Shardamus and a few other interviewers, and you're talking about it. I guess my question is are you semi-involved with Super 7 and kind of like helping them along with their process with that? Are you giving them any pointers? Because I think Grayskull is more of a Scott thing. I don't think you were involved in Grayskull, but still the logistics of how to get a playset of that volume out.
Yeah, so Snake Mountain we tried to launch in 2016. It was huge. It had like crazy stuff like Bluetooth speakers to make sure you could talk through the castle, which was kind of like a stretch, but we were trying to go big. We're trying to top Castle Grayskull, but ultimately, where we ended up was actually closer to where Super 7's at now. When everything ended with Matty Collector, we basically took everything that we had in play that we wanted to do for 2017 and said, "Hey guys, here you go. Like, please, work on this if you want to go with this direction for this figure wave or this playset. It's yours to kind of pass the torch and." Hopefully make a reality. So we haven't really worked with them yet on the direction of where they are now with Snake Mountain, because I think most of it is pretty close to what was originally planned. The model you guys saw, was a bare bones shell of like what was actually happening, what was spec'd out internally for like what we were costing and what the design was. So, we work pretty closely with them when we can on what they're putting out and making sure it's just looks good. But they have the horsemen to kind of like help guide them. So if the horsemen are involved, it's going to be badass and it's going to work. But yeah, they got a challenge coming ahead of them to figure out how we're going to ship that thing and hopefully get it out. So hopefully it all works out.
Thank you both for coming. Just actually as a part B to that question, I know a lot of us bought Matty Collector and then we've transitioned to Super 7 and there has been, can you speak to the issue with the vendor situation? Because I know it's sort of, the line had to go through sort of the same obstacles and challenges that you guys had at its inception 10 years ago, and it's sort of we're seeing a lot of it again, and it has a lot to do with the vendor and tooling that was formerly available that's no longer not. I don't know what those barriers are, but can you speak to, hopefully we can overcome them?
I mean, I can't really speak for the challenges that they're having with their vendors because Super 7 does have their own vendors that they work with. Mattel has their own set of vendors, and I think originally the project, we were hoping that it was just like, here you go, here's all our tools, and keep it going, and everything should be running smoothly. But it's not always that easy. Tools are huge. They weigh a lot, and especially when you have a lot of them, it costs a lot to move them into one factory to another. So sometimes it might be more beneficial to just make new tools. And with that comes complications of part gaps and things that don't fit quite right, and things that you have to overcome and learn and maybe improve on, So it's just part of the design and production process that sometimes it happens. So I can't really speak for how they're handling that, but it seems like they've improved from where they started. Hopefully it just keeps getting better. You learn along the way with a lot of this stuff. So, we had our stuff pretty dialed in, but unfortunately, we can't always just port it over. It doesn't really work that way sometimes. So, yeah.
So we are running down on time, and I'm supposed to open things up to audience questions in a minute. I have a couple more questions that I thought I'd ask. So if you want to get a question in, this is probably your time. Do you think we're free to talk about someone who's who's present at the convention, but maybe not on this panel? Or would you rather let people discover that on their own?
Sure. Maybe if you search, you'll find the answer to that question.
On Twitter. That's really cryptic. Come find me later, and I'll maybe I'll tell you later. Before we get to the final the Q&A from the audience, are there any future projects that maybe the people in the audience are not aware of that you could share something about to the degree that you can are at liberty to share?
Man, that's really tough. I think we've already kind of been asked that in different ways about what is this? What's in that case? Honestly, no. Everything that we've kind of been talking about and showing is kind of as cryptic as we can be with giving you guys something to talk about. I'd say there's more coming from this guy as far as the comics and content that will be out pretty quickly. So I think maybe where that stuff's starting to go could lead where maybe we start going with some product. And I'd see more conventions coming up having more kind of announcements for sure. So
keep reading the bios.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Actually, that's a perfect segue. The bios, that was the subject in the last panel. And one thing they said was that if we wanted a collection of bios, we should tell Mattel. And I think that that's something that I would buy. If Dark Horse would come out with a full collection of all the classics bios, I would love that. And one other thing I want to suggest. I have a 3-year-old, and he loves playing with my vintage toys. He loves the classics toys. I think an Imaginext line of MOTU would be awesome. So, let's make it happen.
Well, I could say that I have seen an Imaginext MOTU line that the Imaginext designers have just done out of passion for it. So it does exist. And I could imagine that if we are back at retail with a mass line, which it seems like we will be very soon, those guys would probably jump at the chance to do MOTU stuff. So it's probably very plausible. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi. I was wondering because I saw, the new She-Ra show coming out, and the animation and the new design is amazing. And I know in the original She-Ra show that sometimes He-Man or Skeletor would appear. I don't know if you could say anything that in the new show could we see a potential, appearance of like, Adam or Skeletor showing up in like a new animation style?
You can take that one.
Not to disappoint you, no, He-Man and Skeletor will not be appearing in the She-Ra cartoon. Will they be appearing in an animated style at some point? I don't know. But no, they won't be appearing in the She-Ra show.
Yeah, right. Not yet.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
But
I appreciate your straightforward response with Castle Grayskull for the Mega Construct line. Big fan of them. Love going in the store, finding them on the shelves. I get a little envious of things like Turtles and Despicable Me and Halo having all these blind bags. Can you be straightforward with an answer of blind bags for Masters of the Universe coming?
I don't know.
Expanding that?
I've asked them nonstop, like, hey, can we get like an actual card back, maybe that has like the real packaging, like maybe the old red brick. And for some reason, they just keep ignoring me. So I would hope that I think once they get their figure selection high enough, then maybe something like that could definitely happen. Okay. Right now, it's with those guys, making a new figure with a new tooled part is, they have to plan that out very far in advance because, especially with Lego too, like making any new tool, new piece, it's a long process that they want to get right. So usually it's what can we do with new deco, what can we use from existing parts. So every time there's a new figure, they really have to be careful and make sure that. So once there's enough of a selection, I think you could definitely see that happen.
Okay.
Or if not, I'll tell them that they should and see if they be
Keep
open
on
to
that.
it. Yeah.
Also, another 3-year-old question. I have a 3-year-old who likes playing with my Masters of the Universe, and the Super 7 has the new line that's coming out that's a little 5-inch.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all come out with another line, would that affect the Super 7, or would y'all be able to reabsorb that line back into Mattel?
I mean, we wouldn't be reabsorbing any of the stuff that they have done, but I mean, the 5.5-inch line is a Mattel product. That's always been a Mattel product. It's a Mattel. Masters of the Universe is Mattel, right? Okay. So whenever you see it at any other company, it's because they're licensing it from Mattel.
So potentially, if y'all did,
we could do.
You could do a 5.
Yes, potentially, if we came back out, there's nothing saying that we couldn't do more of that scale or a different scale.
Okay.
But I don't think we would do anything where we're stepping on what they've done. That their stuff should exist as like, this is great, but we're not going to try to just redo the same stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also have a 3-year-old. He is currently becoming obsessed with He-Man and She-Ra.
Nice job. Nice job.
To
Clap for parenting.
To piggyback off the question, though, about the He-Man appearing in She-Ra, I mean, a lot of us know why that is the case. And that's an expensive, the resolution may be very expensive or impossible. Is there any, and when you talked about the tent lifting and kind of the brand being as it should be, for me, as a long-term collector and as a father, I'm a little tired of the separation. Mm-hmm. I get it, She-Ra can be a good brand for you for girls, but what was always appealing to me about the character is that it wasn't just for girls, it was for boys too, and vice versa. There were a lot of girls in the 80s who loved He-Man.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the ultimate dream for me would be to hand my son a toy line or a cartoon that had both of them, and they're featured either together or off and on. I don't know how that's possible, knowing what I know about the rights issues, but is there any sort of plan or, I mean, I know you can't be specific.
I can't totally be, just, believe me, I agree with you 100%. They are, just in a narrative sense, they are one story.
Right.
Okay? I mean, that's just the way it is. And there absolutely, there's no way, no reason, and nor should there ever be a reason to separate this franchise by any lines, especially not gender lines. So yes, I can't speak to exactly what all the different kind of reasons why they won't appear together in this animated series. That does not mean that there aren't other mediums, other ways we can bring them together. I mean, and I don't just obviously in the comics we brought them together and created one thing. But I'm not just talking about the comics. There are other ways that they can be part and be together in the same tent. It just won't happen in this animated series.
Right. I mean, my biggest concern, I think, is the reception to that new series, and without spoiling, I mean, if the reception is not what it should be, or what ideally it could be for kids or adults, does that endanger that part of the brand because of the rights issues? And I mean, it would be easy for the company to say, and focus on the He-Man side of things.
No, I don't. I mean, no. I mean, no one. The thing is, if it's successful, it floats all boats.
Right.
And if it's not, I don't think it will mean that the He-Man side won't lift off. And I definitely don't think that means that we'll write off She-Ra.
Okay.
I personally, just talking as a creative, will never write off She-Ra. I mean, she is so tremendously, I think, important to the mythology. And I will always find a way to get her into anything that I'm able to do that. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the heart of the mythology, He-Man and She-Ra and Skeletor and Hordak and Grayskull. I mean, this is the beating heart of the whole thing. So you can't, like I said before, it's like when you get down to boiling down what is the core concept, that's the foundation that we're going to build the tent on. So to cut off all of that is just not possible. So we have to just be smart and clever in how we can get around these things. But no, she's not going anywhere.
Thank you.
No.
I also have a 3-year-old.
About a 3-year-old
Question. I just thought we were supposed to say that right now.
Yeah.
No, kidding. So yay, Imaginext, and that possibly coming. Also, want to say loved the He-Man Thundercats comic. That was
thank you
just
very much.
amazing. And for you, sir, for those of us who might have to leave the convention early, could you be less cryptic about your question right now?
Not right now, but we're wrapping up, actually, because we have to set up for the next panel. So unless there's other questions, we'll probably wrap and then say thank you to our guests, and then you can come over here and I can maybe share a little bit with you before you leave. Last call for questions.
Any word on the Mini Masters She-Ra Hordak?
What do you want to know about it?
I see it on eBay.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. That one was a weird one because I have that in my office that got produced, but I thought it made it to retail or was at least online, and all of a sudden I found out that it wasn't, and they showed up on eBay. So I think whoever had that stock of production sitting somewhere that we didn't know about just ended up selling them off. So it's become that kind of hard to find figure that apparently happened. I would love to keep doing the minis if we found a way to do them at a better price and get them out there. If you guys liked us to keep doing them, I don't know. Yeah. Those were tricky because we had an interesting reception because at the time when we launched them, it was like if it wasn't classics, no one wanted anything else. That was kind of the response we got. So it was tough to launch anything new. The Giants had a hard time getting off the ground, but that's because He-Man's face was kind of messed up. But the minis, I have the entire Wave 2 in my desk right now, and they're beautiful. I think there's a chance they can come back out for sure. Maybe even more of them. Maybe at retail, maybe a blind bag kind of execution or something. So, yeah. But as far as that, do you want to know if they're available somewhere, or?
I just wasn't sure they were coming, and that was early.
No,
stock.
they're not. There's no plans coming from us currently. Those just made it out there somehow in the wild, and if you can find one, then you made it. But yeah.
All right, thanks.
Hi, I want to ask you if you have any idea why nobody talk about the Crystal Castle classics, or, I mean.
So
it's,
was the
it's so
question?
beautiful concepts that some people post on internet, but
So about the Crystal Castle and the Classics Wave, I've seen all the concepts of like the different like Eternia, and they're amazing. I think if you can get Snake Mountain off the ground, then maybe those are more of an option. It's just if you can't get Snake Mountain off the ground, then Crystal Castle could be tough because it's big. But I mean, I would love to have all of those huge play sets. Just look, all that stuff happens if you guys support it. You know, if you guys want it that bad and you support it, there's no reason not to do it. It's kind of that day and age of we'll show you what it is, we'll show you how much it costs. If you want it, you help us make it happen. Like Hasbro can make a sail barge. You know, why can't we do something like that, right? It's just figuring out if there's enough support to do it. That's all it comes down to.
So don't forget to mention @Mattel on Facebook and Twitter, and hashtag Tell Mattel. Hashtag we want more Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, annoy
we want
us,
more
guys. Like, just send
She-Ra.
us stuff nonstop. I mean, that's what it takes. And we can just point, look, see what's going on here? Like, we should do this. Yeah.
Along those lines, I'm not sure if you can reveal anything else as far as the fun stuff, but obviously the masks were great. Super 7 does, like, you know, the Moss Band, Chia.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm a big fan of all the extracurricular stuff, talking toothbrush, clocks. I just bought some Shrinky Dinks today. I'm really jazzed about it. So anything like that you can mention, like, down the line?
I mean, I had a bunch of ideas. And a lot of that stuff came from, like, crazy ideas that we threw at someone, and they're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, really? You're going to let us do a fanny pack with fur on it? Like, cool. Like, my boss hates it, but, like, a lot of people love it. And it's one of those things where you're like, it's so bad that it's good. We're like, I don't know how we're getting away with making it. But I definitely have a page of, like, even crazier shit, like, that I would love to do. It's just, you know, I think we had a great support. Everyone loved all the product. So hopefully next year we can do more of that fun stuff.
And Brandon really is bringing so much great, cool ideas and passion to the stuff that's coming out. I mean, all the stuff that you did for Comic-Con is amazing. And like I said before, it's like it takes a lot of energy and passion to keep moving things forward from you guys, from us, from everybody. So it's
yeah, I mean, we're just trying to bring more fun to the brand. That, like, I think there's a huge fun side of Masters of the Universe that sometimes gets lost, sometimes it gets too serious, and you got to be able to poke fun at yourself and just enjoy this stuff. I mean, He-Man wearing fur underwear is kind of who he is, but, like, if you can have fun with it, it's even better. And a lot of that stuff, like, just like the masks themselves, like, we were just like, can we just please do something fun and cool? Like, what can we get out of it? And then we started handing them off to some of the designers internally, and they, like, wanted to paint them up. So we had 4 masks at Comic-Con that were done by amazing artists that we just reached out to that did it for free. Pusshead, one of the old Metallica poster designers, did one. I don't know if you guys know who Skinner is, but he does crazy, like, psychedelic wizards and very cool fantasy art. And from doing that, he's like, hey, we should do a pop-up book for MOTU. Like, take all the amazing old paintings in badass landscapes, but full opens up and it pops up into this crazy thing. Like, he's made a bunch of them. Like, we've briefly talked about that, but now I'm telling you about it. You know, there's all these kind of things that come from these fun things we do where we just get people behind it and just have fun with it. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff to come that's more fun and it's on top of everything else that's planned with product and content and comics. So, yeah.
And that is actually time, so let's thank our guests, please.
Thank you.